Death is a scary thought for most people, including me. But have you ever given much thought about what happens after you die? I try not to, but people will tell you many different things. For some, there's an afterlife, and for others, there's nothing. However, back in 2016, there was a show created on NBC called The Good Place that explores many ideas for what could happen after you die. It certainly changed my whole perspective, as I'm sure it did for most fans of the show. When I first started watching it, which was not too long ago, I was hooked immediately after the first couple of episodes. The first shot opens with a woman named Eleanor Shellstrop who wakes up in a completely blank room except for the words, "Welcome. Everything is fine," written in green on the wall in front of her. Right in the next scene, a man named Michael enters the room telling Eleanor to enter his office. Upon asking Michael many questions, she soon learns that she is dead and that she is now in what is known as the Good Place. Keep in mind, I'm going to do things a little bit differently when it comes to these analysis videos of TV shows. I won't be talking about every detail, but I will be exploring the broad topics. Starting with Season 1, let's first talk about each of the important characters. I've already talked about Eleanor Shellstrop, who's from Arizona, but right off the bat we find out from her that she's not supposed to be in the Good Place. In her past life, up until the day she died, it shows that she was never a good person. This leads her to believe that there's been a mistake made by either Michael or somebody else. Next up, we have Chidi Anagonye, a man who was born in Nigeria and raised in Senegal. He's one of the first characters we meet besides Eleanor and Michael, and seems to be the exact opposite of Eleanor. It's ironic because in The Good Place, everybody is assigned a soulmate, and guess who becomes Eleanor's soulmate? Yep, it's Chidi. He's a bookworm and was a professor of moral philosophy in his past life. His role in Season 1 is to protect Eleanor's secret of there being a mistake in her being sent there, since he's the first one to know about it. Using his expertise in moral philosophy, he does his best to teach Eleanor to become a better person. Tahani Al-Jamil is another major character who was born in Pakistan and raised in high society England, where she was well educated. In her past life, she was exceptionally beautiful and successful, which makes her seem like an overly good person in the Good Place and causes Eleanor to become highly insecure of her. Not to mention, Tahani frequently name-drops celebrities, implying each one has a personal connection to her. It's a bit odd how someone so successful yet constantly brags about herself dies and goes to a place like this. But then again, Eleanor is here too, but we'll get to that part in a bit. Lastly, we have a character named Jianyu Lee, who we don't actually learn much about except for the fact that he's a Taiwanese monk who took a vow of silence in his past life. His soulmate is Tahani, surprisingly. However, Jianyu is not what he seems, because during a party that Tahani throws at her fancy Good Place house, Eleanor drunkenly tells Jianyu that she doesn't belong in the Good Place. The next day, Jianyu slips a note underneath Eleanor's door that says, "You don't belong here." Later on, he sends her yet another note that asks for Eleanor to meet him at night, where she learns his secret identity. Jianyu's real name is Jason Mendoza, a striving DJ from Jacksonville, Florida, and is also not supposed to be in the Good Place. There is also one more important character that is Michael's personal assistant, and her name is Janet. She's mostly there for comedic effect in Season 1, but becomes important later. Nearing the end of the first season, Michael finds out that Eleanor is not supposed to be in the Good Place and has a supposed judge come down to hear her testimony and if he should send her to the Bad Place. Feeling as if this is torture, being with a soulmate who's the exact opposite of her, hating Tahani who makes her feel insecure, and most importantly, being in the Good Place by mistake, Eleanor comes to the conclusion that this quote-unquote good place is actually the bad place. This means that Michael, the judge, and all of the citizens of this place are actually demons. Quite the plot twist for a first season, am I right? Well, it doesn't even compare to the rest of the show. I think what's so unique about The Good Place is the fact that it can change from extremely comedic to extremely depressing and even intense very quickly. The first season does an excellent job of setting the stage for both the tone and overall plot, while also leaving the audience guessing what's going to happen next. At the beginning of the second season, we learn a little more about Michael's character. It's true that he's the architect of this place, using his assistant Janet to build it from the ground up. However, it was used as more of an experiment for the four main characters, Eleanor, Chidi, Tahani, and Jason, to see if the demons could break away from normal means of torture. In other words, instead of physical torture, this supposed good place could be treated as more psychological torture for those who were sent to the bad place. Now, here's where the funny part comes in. Michael was only given one chance at this experiment because it was his idea, and only his idea. Even so, the demons are willing to give him one more shot since the first failed experiment lasted quite a while before Eleanor concluded that this was the bad place. So instead of pairing up Eleanor with Chidi and Tahani with Jason, Michael mixes things up by pairing them up with other demon actors and actresses. He believes that the only reason Eleanor concluded this was the bad place is because they were all forced to meet each other in the first season as an obvious means of torture. Now, it won't be so obvious, right? Well, the funny part that I was talking about happens right at the end of the first episode of the second season because Eleanor comes to the same conclusion again. This causes Michael to lie to his superior demons by resetting their memories and continuously trying over and over again on his own accord. Each time, it's not even Eleanor who always comes to that conclusion anymore. Sometimes the others, Chidi, Tahani, and Jason, find out as well. Michael spirals out of control to the point where he falls deep into a crisis. So he decides to turn to the four humans for help in creating a better system of torturing other humans. Honestly, this is more of a transitional season leading to the more important plot points because this is a pivotal moment when Michael forms a bond with the four humans. While forming this bond, everyone, including Michael, creates a goal to become better people. Well, except for Michael, who's a demon. Anyway, we would have already learned about Eleanor's, Tahani's, and Jason's backstories near the end of the first season and how they died, but nearing the end of the second season, we learn more about Chidi's death. This is because his death and why he was sent to the bad place is more complicated than the others. Eleanor was comedically run over by a truck advertising erectile dysfunction pills after being pushed into the street by a set of shopping carts. This happens after she accidentally spills margarita mix in a parking lot. She didn't die for any particular reason, but she was a bad person in her life on so many grounds that I won't get into. Tahani was crushed by a giant statue of her sister that she tried to pull down with a rope due to jealousy of her. Jason suffocated and died in a safe while trying to rob a restaurant with his friend Pillboy, what kind of name is that, who was placed on probation and not charged in his death. Finally, it's revealed that Chidi was also crushed, but this time by a falling air conditioner. Look, I'm sure you've noticed a pattern by now that it's not about how these characters died in their past lives, but rather the choices they've made that led them to that point. Chidi's whole character flaw is that he's afraid of decision making. The moral philosophy part in him stops him from any important life choices as well as small ones. In turn, this hurts not only him, but the people around him. I think that Chidi is a prime example of what the first two seasons try to teach us, that people are not all black and white. So why was even someone like Chidi, who still strived to be a good person in his life compared to the others, sent to the bad place? A question like that is answered in the final two seasons. After the group takes a trip to the actual bad place, unlike the one that Michael creates with his assistant Janet, they soon escape the terrible clutches of the demons and make their way to the actual judge of both heaven and hell. The group petitions the judge to review their case and determine if they truly belong in the good place. Meanwhile, Janet, the omniscient assistant, becomes more human-like, and her evolving emotions create both comedic and heartfelt moments. The four humans eventually convince the judge that they've improved morally despite being in a deceptive environment created by Michael, and are sent back to Earth in a new experiment. Their memories are wiped again, and they are given a second chance to prove they can become better people without the influence of the afterlife. Season 2 builds on the show's sharp humor, emotional depth, and clever twists, setting the stage for deeper philosophical questions in Season 3. Season 3 delves much deeper into the moral and philosophical journeys of the four humans. It focuses on the themes of redemption, ethics, and the complexities of human behavior. It begins with Michael and Janet resetting the lives of Eleanor, Chidi, Tahani, and Jason on Earth. They are then placed in situations that are designed to help them improve morally without their knowledge of the afterlife. However, Michael still intervenes, trying to get the four of them to meet each other, as he believes they operate and grow better together. The all-powerful judge soon discovers this, which leads to complications. Fortunately, Michael's plan works anyway, and the four of them realize on their own that they can help each other improve. Meanwhile, Chidi rekindles his relationship with a fellow academic named Simone, which causes some tension, especially with Eleanor, who has fallen in love with Chidi almost every time their memories have reset. Yes, even though Chidi and Eleanor are opposites, they are still attracted to each other. Eventually, the group learns the truth about the afterlife when Michael reveals the experiment and shows them how the bad place deals with torture, hence why Michael began his own experiment that we see in Season 1. As a result, they decide to confront the system and work towards fixing it. They travel to the interdimensional hole of pancakes, which is where the judge lives, to present their case to the judge. And Michael and Janet take the lead on proposing a fairer way to judge human morality, while Eleanor and Chidi explore their feelings for each other, leading to another brief romantic connection. The judge allows Michael to run a new experiment to prove humans can improve, while the bad place selects 4 new humans to test the system. These humans are chosen to challenge the team in ways that expose their flaws. Now, here's where one of the saddest moments comes in. Well, except for the ending of the final season, but Chidi erases his memory to avoid bias in the new trial, ultimately upsetting Eleanor. Explaining the corrupt system of the good place and bad place further, a man named Doug Forsett is a prime example that everyone goes to visit before meeting the judge. Doug's theory comes closest to how everything in the afterlife operates, so he's afraid of being sent to the bad place if he does anything wrong in his life. The way it works is that there's a point system. For every good deed you do in your life, you get a certain number of points, depending on the quality of that deed, and vice versa for the number of bad things you do. Overall, if the goodness points outweigh the bad, then you get sent to the good place. The reason the 4 main characters challenge the system is because after meeting Doug, who tries everything he can to be a good person, they learn that he will be sent to the bad place regardless. Season 3 ends with hope, as their new experiment begins with new stakes, leading into the final season. The final season of The Good Place concludes the story with a focus on justice, morality, and the ultimate purpose of existence. The season revolves around the new experiment designed to determine if humans can genuinely improve. Michael and his team, the 4 humans, oversee the new neighborhood. The new humans that are under observation show signs of moral growth, proving that the experiment is working. But challenges shortly arise, including Brent, a self-absorbed participant whose behavior puts the results in jeopardy. Even with the woman who Chidi had an infatuation with, his former academic Simone, is also part of the experimental group. Eleanor's memories were never erased, so she still has feelings for Chidi, causing more complications when Chidi develops feelings for Simone. As the season progresses, the team learns that the afterlife system's flaws go deeper than they imagined, affecting all human judgments. The judge, who was initially skeptical, agrees to refine the system after the success of the experiment. Michael, Eleanor, Chidi, Tahani, Jason, and Janet propose a new afterlife process. Instead of eternal judgment, humans will go through a series of tests and opportunities to grow. Once they achieve moral enlightenment, they can move on to the ultimate good place. After all this talk and foreshadowing about the actual good place, their final destination ends up being there. Each of them, including Michael, finally enters the good place, but discovers that it also has its share of challenges in which eternal perfection leads to boredom and complacency. In the end, they propose a solution, giving residents the choice to leave the good place and end their existence when they feel fulfilled. One by one, each of the main characters finds their own contentment. First, we have Jason, who finds love with Janet and spends enough time with her that he feels fulfilled. Next, Tahani stays and becomes an afterlife architect, just like Michael. After that, Chidi overcomes his indecision and chooses to move on after sharing meaningful time with Eleanor. Lastly, Eleanor encourages Michael to fulfill his dream of becoming human while she eventually chooses to leave the good place herself. After I watched this ending, I couldn't help but feel every emotion piling up at once. I also didn't think I could watch a single series ever again because this completely peaked for me. Obviously, that's not true, but this show as a whole felt so perfectly written and acted that I didn't know what to think other than not wanting to live for eternity. I hope that everybody here feels the same way and understands what I mean, because I don't think any other show can or will make me feel the same way that The Good Place did, and it still does to this day. Thank you so much for watching. This video took a lot of time to make, so I would really appreciate it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and please make sure to turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a future upload. More quality videos like this one coming soon. Once again, I really appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.